And go ahead.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Nice to see everyone. Well, actually, I don't see everyone. It would be so nice to see everyone if we saw everyone. So, hello. I am Doug, and
hi, I'm Melissa. Wait, that was opposite.
We said that out of order because usually people know us if we say hi.
I'm Melissa.
And I'm Doug.
And Doug.
And Doug. So that's how people would normally know us. So we want to say hello. We want to thank everyone. We want to thank Laura. This is going to be especially fun tonight because Melissa is already laughing. Melissa has been speaking with a lot of people, and usually she speaks with professionals, not amateurs that she happened to have married 30 years ago. So tonight will be a little bit different. And since I am the one that gets to ask the questions tonight, I figure I should change it up a little bit because to prove that I'm not a professional. So I think that tonight we'll have some fun and we'll cover some ground that maybe Melissa hasn't covered previously in her discussions about her book and her journey. But first, I want to begin with a little bit of trivia about me.
Should we thank Barbara?
We are. I would like to see if Melissa remembers what year I was born.
Are you joking?
No, I'm not.
1963?
Not, ding, 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 ding. That's pretty good.
What do you mean?
1963. I was born in 1963. There is some significance to that. And you might want to retract those words in just a minute, because the significance of that is that someone else was born in 1963. Barbara's Bookstore, which I think is amazing. And I just wanted to tip my hat to Barbara's Bookstore. And I wanted to thank everyone so much for having us as your special guest today. And it is interesting because when I said I was born in 1963, Melissa's first reaction was, oh, wow. Oh my gosh, so old. But when we say Barbara's Bookstore began in 1963, it's wow.
It's a good old.
That's amazing. That's really impressive.
And another bit of trivia. Guess what the first name of both our mothers is? Barbara.
Barbara Landau, Barbara Bernstein. So there are many reasons why we're happy to be here, including the fact that where it all began with Melissa and Doug and our children's products began in the wonderful independent sector. And that's where Melissa's and my heart has always been. And we've always enjoyed so much interacting with neighborhood community stores. And the fact that you do events like this is really especially wonderful, because these types of community events are really what keeps people connected together before, during, after a pandemic. It's what's needed all the time. So we thank you and we applaud you for what you're doing. And we're truly grateful to be with you as your guests today.
Thank you.
So back to Melissa. So let's see, where shall we begin? Why don't we begin with
hopefully not 1963.
What we did just these past few days, where we were, and what was significant about that for you.
For me?
Yes.
I thought you meant for them.
For you.
Yes. So one of the most powerful volumes in my book and in my life, one of my most powerful lifelines is nature. And there has always been something about nature that stirs me like nothing else. Nature is, I would say, it's probably my most powerful lifeline. And we just went to the mountains of North Carolina, which are magical to me. There's nothing like it. And there's something about, for those of you who find the power of nature intoxicating, you know, I suffer from something called existential depression. And one of the antidotes to it is really understanding sort of the paradoxes of life. And one of the reasons I love nature so much is nature shows so many paradoxes and seems okay with those paradoxes, like darkness and light, like birth and death, like winter, which is really cold and barren, and spring, which is really lush and green. And I just love the lessons nature tries to teach me every single day. And all I do is sit there and try to breathe in those lessons and try to learn them because I have such a hard time really learning some of them.
So that's how we spent the last few days, and it is really important, Melissa. And I just want to just on a technical point, I see some of you are putting in comments that we're appearing blurry, and we assure you that's not intentional. We're not trying to haze ourselves over here. Hopefully you can hear us okay. So if you comment, so this way we'll know. But some of you are saying that it's hard to see us, and we apologize for that. But hopefully you could hear us well.
Doug didn't really take care of himself today, so it is entirely intentional with regard to him. So hopefully I'm very clear and he's blurry.
So I'm seeing notes that the audio is good. That's nice to know. So we apologize, and maybe this will be a little bit
close your eyes,
old school radio style.
Yeah.
We're and you could feel free to ask us questions also, and we will address your questions. Someone is saying video is blurred, can it be fixed? I don't know if we reboot, or if you could check with someone. I know we have a couple of people from our technical team on standby, so if we have to reboot or something, but anyway, we apologize. In the meantime, let's go back to the days of radio. So it's been a few weeks, Melissa, since your book first was born, and people started reading it. And I'm curious, what have been some of the reactions you've received, and what have been some of the feelings you've felt? Because you've given birth many times in your life. We have 6 amazing children. A lot of products, a pretty large size toy company, and now this beautiful book. So the birth of this book, talk to us a little bit about that.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think the feelings have been indescribable and brought me to a place where I know this is what I meant to spend the rest of my life doing. And I feel so fortunate to have found that thing. Even though, creating toys was and has been my salvation for so many decades, and I enjoy it immensely. I think when you can give from your soul in a way that can bring people who are in darkness light, there's nothing comparable. And, the book isn't for everyone. I mean, I wrote it for my soul. Yeah. And I wrote it for those people who have also felt stigmatizing feelings, and that they don't belong, and that they don't fit in, and sometimes that they're lonely. And I wanted to share those feelings with others who feel the same way, so they didn't feel so alone. And I think I'm hearing from a lot of those people that it is making them not feel so alone, and that brings me tremendous joy.
So while you were creating plus or minus 10,000 toys over the past years with me, that's right, I unpacked them and packed them. That was about my contribution.
Don't.
While all of that was going on,
Team M&D.
Go team M&D. I am the ampersand part of D. But while we were creating these toys, so you were also.
By the way, my favorite part of Doug are his hands. He has the best hands.
It's good that no one can see. That's why it's blurry.
They're so nice.
So while you were creating these amazing 10,000 toys, where and when and how were you also creating these thousands of verses? Where did they come from? What was the derivation, and what led you to feeling that now is a time that you wanted to release these for other people to hopefully receive inspiration and hope for what you've learned in your journey throughout the past many years?
Wow, that's a big one. So I don't know how many of you also have been trapped in your head for a lot of your lives. And I think some of us who are heady, introverted, creative, have so many things in our head that sometimes we feel like our head might explode. And I know for me, my head was a really dark, dangerous place for many years, and utter disorder and chaos. And those verses that I wrote, I believe, were my way of making sense of the disorder, because they're perfectly metered and they rhyme. And when I can take that utter chaos and turn it into like a 4-line perfectly formed verse, it brings me a sense of calm. And it's funny, I don't know how many of you watched The Queen's Gambit, which was one, oh, it was such a good show. You didn't end up watching it.
No.
But my kids did, and I did. And she said something in it. And when I heard it, I had to I was like, did she really just say that? I had to rewind it like 3 times because it was so powerful. And she basically talked about this woman is a chess master, and she basically would look up at the ceiling at night and see the entire chessboard completely laid out with exactly the move she was supposed to take. And she said that was the place where I was in control, where everything was in order. And I was like, I had to listen to it a few times because it's the exact same thing with a perfectly metered verse that I see completely finished in my head. It's a way of making order from the disorder. And I guess that is common in people who have tremendous disorder and need to make sense of it. So I wrote them just for me. I didn't write them for anyone else to see. And by the time I started the book, I had over 3,000 of them, 3,500 verses.
And that's amazing. And the verses, we've all, us, myself, your kids, we've all read them many times, and we get something different out of each verse every time that we read each verse. And I think one of the amazing things, and I think one of the things maybe you could share that might be helpful, is that, when people see you and see us and see the wonderful times that we have together, and amazing times in so many respects with our family, with our children, with just us, with our walks and all of that, and see us having fun and enjoying this, a lot of people are surprised to find out that, yes, you have tough days. You have days that you would say you are fighting the depression that others have. And when we talk now and you hear all the stats now about how many people are struggling. I was speaking with my brother earlier today, and he was saying, gosh, it's just so many people that, that he talks with, and friends. And it's amazing that so many people are struggling and having a tough time. And I know you've shared with me, and maybe you could share with everyone who's listening tonight about that, and that as a motivating factor for really what you wanted to do in sharing your story.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's deep. You're asking some really deep ones.
If it's too difficult for you, wow. I'll bring it back a little bit. This is
tougher than the usual moderator. Thanks a lot, Barber's Bookstore. Yeah, I mean.
And then we're going to go. And I was going to wear my hidden microphone and then follow you around and do my 60 minutes rendition. No, go ahead.
See, the good news is Doug does always make me laugh. And for someone who can be very despairing, that is an incredibly good thing. So for all of you despairing, get a Doug in your life. It's definitely part of the medicine I need. Yeah, so I think, what I'm trying to show people is depression doesn't discriminate. And I was born depressed, honestly, really depressed, existentially depressed, with this crisis of meaning from the moment I can remember. And I will end my life with that crisis of meaning if I allow it to continue. And when I say that, I mean, what I have learned is, when I get in my head and that voice tells me that life is meaningless and futile and it's not worth it and it doesn't matter, whatever I do is in vain, I can go to a really dark place very quickly. But what, existentialism has taught me, and really understanding this affliction and what it means and how I can be my best self in the face of it, I've realized that I can choose to live life to its fullest, despite the fact that I have this affliction. And I can create meaning for myself. I can create a practice that helps me to be safe and sane when I can go low. And I have to do it every day, and it's my form of medicine. But it's something I can do to live a really bountiful life. And I want to show others that they're not mutually exclusive. Because you are depressed doesn't mean you have to give up living and that there's no hope. It's quite the opposite. It's that you can have an affliction and you learn to live with it and control it, in a sense, and still live a very fulfilling life. So I think that's what I'm trying to show folks. And we talk all the time about really establishing a practice, every single one of us. And I personally believe that every person on the planet from preschool on should develop their practice. Because what we're seeing with COVID is depression, despair can afflict anyone, and you never know what might happen. So if you have this wonderful practice, I call it my backpack of LifeLines, that you can strap on every day, and it's right there. It's right on you. So anytime something goes awry, because life is unpredictable and it will go awry, you can take off your backpack, you can unzip it, and you can say, okay, what do we got in here today? What am I going to pull out and utilize? And that's what I'm doing every single day.
And I know you do that every single day. And I literally, she's not kidding. Every single day, Melissa does this. And every single day, she reaches for what she refers to as her lifelines. And she reaches for what she considers to be her passion, something that's meaningful to her. And she wants to do that. And it's not crazy things that are out of the reach of anybody. It's collecting shells like you did about 2 hours ago. And I would like to, I want to just digress and look at a question, because I think this is interesting. It plays right into this, is that someone who's watching tonight said, this is so refreshing to hear someone speaking their truth. I so needed this tonight, and I'm glad I logged on. I was feeling lonely, and what am I going to do with my life? And I think that's exactly what you're talking about all the time, which is encouraging people to find the things that really provide them with those moments of happiness and moments of passion. So can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think that's a wonderful question. I think it would be wonderful for you to share your thoughts on that.
And I'm going to answer another question while I answer that one. So it doesn't involve money. No, finding your passion. And there's this amazing word that, so I lived in Japan, and I was fluent in Japanese. And there's an incredible word that the Japanese learn from the time they're born, which is called Ikigai, for those of you who know it. And in Japan, Ikigai is something you strive your whole life to find. And when you find it, it means you will live a fulfilling life. And it's one of the reasons I believe that the Japanese have one of the highest longevity rates of any country on the planet, because they search for Ikigai and they find it. So Ikigai is a combination of 4 things coming together. It's what you love, it's what you're good at, it's what the world needs, and it's what you can be paid for. And if you can find the intersection of all 4 of those things, it's your Ikigai. And sometimes you can have just 1 or 2 of them. I call them your passions. If you find your passion and your talent, that can be really fulfilling too. It won't be your vocation, but it can be an amazing source of joy. But I think, no, money or anything you search for externally, outside yourself, will bring you temporary joy or temporary sense of achievement or success. But no, when we talk about finding meaning, meaning is only found from in your soul. And it's something that no one else can do for you. People can guide you there by asking the questions, things like, What did you love to do as a child? What is the thing you do where time stops, where you just want to do that thing over and over and over when you can't do it? You know, it's sowing those seeds of self-expression that exist in your soul that we all have. Some of us just never kindle them. Some of us lose them because of life's traumas. Some of us life's burdens, like snuff them out, but they're there. They're always there. And if you take the time to make that journey inward, which none of us do because it's terrifying, but if you really make the journey inward, and we have that journey free of charge on our website, you will ultimately, if you do it authentically and genuinely, you will unpack all the burdens that have been snuffing out your innate sparks, and you will find them. And in those are your meaning, or your Ikigai. So we all have it. It's just a matter of going backward, because we're all going the opposite direction. We're going outside ourselves. We're not going the right direction, which is toward our soul.
And I do see there are a few questions that are asking about money, and does that bring happiness and all that? And those are great questions. And you know, we certainly know that when we're out there talking, we know that question will come up. And I can tell you this, you know, Melissa could give her answer also, but I could tell you that, you know, from the beginning, you know, when we started, Melissa and Doug, this was only about one thing. It was our passion. We wanted to make educational products for children. We both came from families of educators. Both of the Barbaras were teachers. Melissa's mom, a teacher, mine a guidance counselor, and my dad an elementary school principal, and Melissa's father an educational publisher. And when we began this, it was all about making educational products for children. And I can tell you that even over the years, as our products became more popular and as people really appreciated what we were doing, Melissa never once understood, asked, cared about what is the profitability of what we're doing, anything like that. Never asked, never even understood what it was, and only focused on one thing: making the most amazing product she ever could possibly make for children. And that's where her joy came. And sure, yes, you know, did it work out, you know, financially? Yes. But is that what we strived for? Is that a source for the happiness? No. And I see some other people are commenting that way also, but it's not the cause of pain, and it's not the solution for pain. Right. It's something that just happens along with, commingles with. Yeah.
And I think, you know, the reason I believe that our toys did find so many homes in the hands of children is because it was our Ikigai.
Right.
Because you can't fake that. And when something truly comes from your soul, and it is the culmination of those 4 areas that I mentioned, it can't help but find resonance, because you are putting a piece of yourself in every single one of those products. And that's what we did. You know, we never thought about the end result. And that's why I think, you know, we did create toys that, you know, some people have really enjoyed. So I think it's not a means to an end. It doesn't mean it doesn't bring you some material joy, no doubt. But does it bring you meaning? No, absolutely not. Meaning only comes from within. And I'm a good indicator of that, because I think, you know, a few years ago, I realized that because I had never accepted myself, I had never accepted those qualities in me that were very stigmatizing, that gave me that ability to create, I was, you know, utterly bereft inside, because I didn't know who I was and I hadn't accepted myself. So despite the fact that I had every material thing you could ever want and had achieved that traditional dream of success, you know, the American dream. I mean, I couldn't have anything else materially. Despite that, I still had no sense of who I was. So honestly, and I think now we're not doing this for money at all. I mean, we're funding the entire thing. We're losing money quicker than we've ever made it. And I feel more joy and more meaning and more fulfillment than I ever have. So I think it's showing that, you know, you can do something that's truly from your soul and have it give you much more meaning than something that, is for the material. Right.
And I think it's fair question, and we certainly know that the question will come up, and we're actually glad for it to come up, because the truth is, even when we began this, we knew that question would arise, and interesting. I can tell you what both Melissa and I said about that is, we said that's wonderful, that's the best thing that could happen, because that more than anything magnifies that. Okay, if money isn't the answer, then what is the answer? And I think that's what makes this, even more meaningful for Melissa to do this, because she can go out there and she can say, I have all the material things. There isn't a material thing in the world that Melissa would want that she doesn't have or couldn't have. And what she's saying is that is not the answer. And that's why she spent her own time doing her own journey inward. And that's why she wants to share her journey, because her journey crosses all boundaries. You don't need money to go on the journey that Melissa has gone on.
Right.
And I think that's really the important message that she wants to deliver.
Yeah. And one of the other fascinating things is, I read a lot of books from mystics, and I love Eastern philosophy. And most of the mystics say that those who have truly become enlightened, they always, one of the precursors to it was having everything they ever wanted. Because you could argue that the despair is even greater if you achieve everything, because when you're striving, there's still a goal, right? You still believe that hope lies around the corner. And if you just do that one other thing and you keep working harder, you'll get there. And if you die trying, you still had hope even in that last breath. But if you achieve everything you ever wanted and you're still despairing and unhappy, well, then what does that say? That says there's nothing else you can do. And that actually can make many lose all hope, because then they've done it. They reached the pinnacle and they're still miserable. So I think in many cases, ironically, reaching that pinnacle of success can actually lead you to a much greater meaning crisis than ever, because then you truly know the truth that it doesn't come from that, and you're going to have to find some other way.
So a bunch of questions, and I love all the questions. This is a great, really engaged group of people.
Questions.
Thank you.
We love questions.
Yeah, this is really fantastic. So a few themes that maybe we could go to next are asking about the LifeLines.com ecosystem. This is an ecosystem that we've built over the last few months. As Melissa mentioned, it's entirely free. There's no charge at all for it. And we have invested a lot in it. It's been a big investment on our part, millions of dollars. And we created it because of Melissa's real desire to help as many people as possible. So a few of the questions I'll kind of bring together maybe in one for you, which is, how did that come about? What was the idea for the lifelines.com ecosystem? Where did that come from? And what is your hope that this will be able to do for other people who join it and jump onto the lifelines.com site?
Great question.
It wasn't mine. It was theirs.
Yeah. So, it was based on my own experience of feeling really alone at many points. And I don't mean alone that there weren't amazing people like Doug around me. I mean alone in myself, in my soul, in my relationship with me. And it was based on three really strong contentions. One is I didn't want anyone to ever feel alone in the way I did, meaning that not accepting themselves, really shutting off from themselves because they despised who they were at their core. And I wanted a community that accepted everyone, people who felt isolated, alone, stigmatized, bereft, that they'd never have friends, to come to us and we would welcome them with open arms. So that was the first. The second, also, that came from my own experience, is that we all have the capacity to channel our darkness into light and find meaning. Does that mean every day is going to be perfect? Absolutely not, because it's not for me. And I promise you it's not for anyone. But we all have these beautiful seeds of self-expression in our souls that are like yearning to be kindled. And I want people to do that. I want people to know that they do have a choice, whether to stay entrenched in despair or to start to make and choose their attitudes, their behaviors, and their actions to sow those seeds. And then 3, many of us, most of us, spend a lifetime running what we call the futile race, racing outside themselves for a quick fix answer, for success, for achievement, for validation. And it proves in vain, because the truth is, it's not until we stop and decide to go the opposite direction, make that journey inward and accept ourselves in totality, that we truly find fulfillment. And I finally did that. It took until middle age, until I finally admitted I wasn't perfect. I needed help, and I wanted to make that journey inward finally, and sort of accept who I was. And that journey became so profound and revelatory for me that we wanted to recreate it for the centerpiece of our ecosystem. And that's what we did. We created this. So Doug and I talked about this journey, and I said, I call him D, I want to bring this journey to life. And he was like, you're kidding me, right? I was like, no, I'm not kidding you. There's going to be a backpack. There's going to be a compass. There's going to be acorns. There's going to be pine cones. They're going to be.
I'm like taking my notes. Yes, Melissa.
Sparks.
Yes. Yes, Melissa. Yes.
Please. It'll mean a lot to me.
So we brought this to life, and we do hope that you will experience it. We try to create a wonderful community where people can connect together, where people can share stories and can be part of a community together. One thing I want to talk about, because you brought up feudal race, and I think this is really interesting, and it's one of the advantages of having this moderated by your husband, who's with you all the time. One might think, when you talk about it, that when you talk about the feudal race and how you've worked to manage your way through the feudal race, one might get an impression that it's done, it's over, it's all accomplished, never has to be thought about again. But you talk all the time about a practice, and that it has to happen every single day. And just a few days ago, we talked about this, because you found yourself getting into your feudal race again. And we talked about that. And I think that's really important. I think that would be really nice for you to share with everyone, because, and I see one of the questions is, what are the solutions to stress? And it's interesting because, I've heard you say so many times that there isn't a quick answer to that. There isn't this is the answer to stress. Once a week, you drink this special enriched bottle of water, and you talk about that all the time. It's a practice that you talk about, a daily practice that you can't even skip a day of this. Yeah. And so talk about that a little bit, because I think people will find it's interesting, because when I hear you talk about it, on one hand, I find it intimidating, might be the wrong word, because you want to be like, it's done. You're there. You never have to deal with it again. But on the other hand, I find it the most inspirational thing in the world, because what an amazing thing that you could fall into the abyss again, and because of your practice can find your way back to that top and the light again. I think that's the most amazing thing of your journey.
I would agree with you, D. I think the biggest lesson that I have learned, and it's been the hardest lesson, so it's not like a beautiful lesson in many senses, is that even though I made this journey and accepted myself in totality and allow my feelings, and I'm accepting that I'm a creative misfit and have all these like stigmatizing qualities that give me the ability to create, every day is not bliss. And I thought it was going to be. And I would say that is one of society's myths that we try to dispel in a lot of our workshops, which is like, it's supposed to be blissful. Every day is supposed to be like happy. And And we have these, I had these, I won't say we, many of us had these fairy tale images that it's all about like rainbows and butterflies and white picket fences, and like it's just going to be perfect. Every day is going to be sunshiny, and like those birds are going to be singing. It's not. And what I've realized is life is a full spectrum of emotion, from the highest of highs, beautiful bliss, to the lowest of lows. And that might happen in 1 hour or one day. It's not like, you're going to have 3 months of bliss and then 3 months of despair, or vice versa. It's just undulating every single day. So because it isn't blissful every moment, especially for those of us who are highly sensitive or have, hypersensitivities that make our extremes greater, and mine tend to be like, they're not like right in the middle, kind of slightly, moving. I need a practice every single day to support me, so that when I fall below the line, which I do quite frequently, I don't become submerged and never come back. So the practice is, for me, it's 3 areas that I have to engage in every single day. One of them is self-care. And I think self-care for me is so important, because lots of us who can fall into a dark place, we stop taking care of ourselves. I am known to not eat, to deny myself any form of pleasure, which food is one of them. We must eat. We must sleep. I don't sleep a lot when I'm like manic and creating a lot. I don't want to sleep, but I have to, because that can put you in a bad spot. A lot of us don't engage in hygiene. We don't want to get out of bed. We don't want to change our clothes. We don't want to wash our hair. Like, those things are important to take care of yourself, because it makes you feel better. So all the self-care, it can be anything, it's different for all of us. The center is tools and skills that I've had to really learn to support myself when I start to fall low. And those can include anything for us. Some people it's yoga, some people it's meditation. For me, it's mindfulness, which means whatever I do, I try to be feeling it when I do it. Like if I'm drinking a bottle of water, I try to actually feel myself drinking it. It's mantras, which are my verses that I repeat to myself. And another one, someone asked, what are the solutions to stress? That's another one that's part of my practice and part of the journey. It's allowing your feelings. So when you feel anything, anxiety is actually a precursor to growth. So if you're going to grow and experience any sort of transformation, you're going to feel tremendous anxiety. We're not supposed to resist anxiety. If we resist it, then it just festers. What we are to do with all emotions is allow them, is to look at them as clouds across our sky. And instead of like judging them and getting angry at them and getting angry at ourselves for having them, if we can develop a practice of looking at them as sort of questioning, like, you're there today. What are you doing? Like, what are you here to teach me? And be curious about them rather than judgmental. It's pretty incredible. They actually start to teach us things, and they ultimately just pass like a cloud would pass by the sky. So that's the skills, and the tools. And then the last section is the most fun. That's the passions and the play. And that's really anything that takes you from your head and your heart. It's any form of self-expression. It's dancing, it's singing, it's playing music, it's listening to music, it's crafting of any sort, it's gardening, it's walking in nature, it's being with people you love. It's all those things that are your passions and your form of play. And all 3 of those have to be, for me, engaged in every single day, especially on the days that I'm feeling really good, not bad. When I'm feeling good is when I have to do the practice more than ever, because if I say, I'm feeling great these few weeks, I don't need a practice, like I'm feeling, why would I need that? Which most of us do. Then on that 22nd day, when I can't get out of bed because I'm so low, I don't even remember what the practice is. I'm like, I don't have anything to just pull out of my backpack. So a practice means you must practice it every single day. For me, it's every single day of my life. It's my medicine. And it has to become muscle memory. So on those days that I'm really, really low, I just can pull my backpack out and take out another few LifeLines, because that day I might need a few more, and it's second nature to me. Sorry, that was long, but
no, it's
really important.
It's so helpful, and I see you with your practice every day. I love the way you talked about anxiety and being, I think you referred to it as a necessary part of growth. And I remember a few years ago, our now 13-year-old son was playing in a Little League game, and he was nervous about it. And he was nervous about hitting. And I remember we called a friend of ours who happens to play professional baseball very successfully. He's been an all-star, captain of one of the more famous baseball teams. And I asked him, and I said, David, when did you stop becoming anxious about getting up to bat? And his answer was the best answer ever. He said, Doug, he goes, I am anxious every single time I get up to bat. And that's the reason why I am successful.
Love that.
And so when Melissa talks about it, and we have this conversation a lot, and there's a fellow on the call here, Michael, asked a question, how to manage through stress. And I think what Melissa likes to emphasize is embracing it, not running from it, embracing it, putting your arms around it, give it a little bit of a hug, welcome it. I saw a comment from Sheena a little while ago, and Sheena said that it's not on the screen anymore, but I made a mental note. I thought it was important. Sheena said, every day has its beautiful moments, but not every day is wholly beautiful. Yeah. And I think that's the type of thing that I hear you talk about a lot, is that it is okay to accept. Each day is going to have, and you talk all the time about embracing and accepting your entire self and your entire being, including your anxieties, including your stressors, including your fears and your concerns, and embracing all that as part of the totality of who you are. You always speak with me about how that helps you. And frankly, just about a week ago, I remember you had a moment where you had something like that. And I saw you kind of catch your breath a little bit, and I knew what you were doing. You were digesting it. You were stopping, as you talk about on your journey. You were accepting it, and then you were allowing yourself to move on with your day. So talk about that, because I think that's one of the greatest traits that you've discovered for yourself in your journey that I think would be most helpful to those who are listening.
Aw. Well, again, it comes back to nature. And I think, when there's a rainy day, is that not beautiful? If you really see it for what it is, and decide to go for a walk in the rain and find a certain quietness in the rain, or the sound of the raindrops, or the way it looks on the ground, that makes some beauty in that too. And I think if you looked at it superficially, you're like, oh, it's raining today. Like that stinks, and you're angry about it, until you go out and you realize that, like, all the seasons can be beautiful if you appreciate them for what they are. And we have an exercise in our hike that I do every day. It's part of my tools in the middle of my backpack. And I've mentioned it before, but it's called Be the Sky. And I had to figure out a metaphor for myself to be the witness behind all these feelings, these myriad of feelings that I would have. And the best way I could think about it is I was the sky. So you can also be the ocean. I mean, yours can be anything. But you can be the calm ocean, sort of beyond the waves. But I love the sky, because if I think of myself as the sky, and I think about all the emotions that I will go through in a day, the clouds, and some of the clouds are angry, and they're heavy, and they're threatening. Others are just big puffy white clouds that are just minor little disturbances. And some days are just crystal clear blue sky. And if I think about it, and I think about the sky itself, is the sky upset when a dark cloud rolls by it? No, the sky is completely objective and dispassionate to whatever goes by. And it's just kind of a witness, just sitting there waiting patiently until the clouds pass. And then it's the blue sky, and then another cloud comes by. And that's why nature's so important to me, because if I can be that sky and see the emotions as mere disturbances sort of passing on by, you can begin again to look at them with curiosity instead of angst, and really ask the question, what are you here to show me? And you can start to do the work, like, okay, I'm feeling really unsettled right now. And you can begin to do the C part of our journey, comprehend, like, what is it? Why am I feeling unsettled? What is this triggering in me, and where is it coming from? And once you can understand why you're feeling things and process it, they don't bother you anymore. I mean, they'll come back. It's a practice. So again, some feelings, because they are so deep in us from unconscious traumas and memories, it takes us again and again and again to be able to process them and not feel them anymore. But if they're coming up, if you're feeling anxiety or stress of any sort, it's because it's something you need to work through. It's telling you something. So when we deny and we repress it, we're denying our ability to ever be at peace, because it's going to take the inward investigation and the comprehension of it to ever get past it, if that makes sense.
It's interesting because a lot of people are asking about anxiety in particular, and probably because anxiety is at such all-time highs. You and I talk about that, and every day we see another report talking about anxieties being at all-time highs. And a few people have asked, and someone asked about whether or not some of your positions, some of your feelings about this came from your study of philosophy. And I know that that's something that maybe people would enjoy hearing about, how you arrived at your opinions, your thoughts on anxiety, and how you've come up with your methods of managing through anxiety.
Yeah, I love that question. And I think, my journey took two separate paths. My journey to self-acceptance took the help of a therapist and psychotherapy and, some cognitive behavioral therapy, some talk therapy, to really finally go back to all the traumas, go back to all the things about myself that I despised, and really come to accept myself. And that was self-acceptance. But my meaning, which was my original crisis, my existential despair, that came through philosophy. And it was my own journey. No one took me on it except myself. And really, for the first time, really just starting about a year ago, going back and using the wisdom of so many wise people before me who pondered these questions and came up with beautiful answers. And they really talk about anxiety as being the essence of humanity and the human condition to get from inauthentic. So what happens is we start our lives as children, authentic, right? Brandishing everything we feel. And then quickly society sort of makes us follow convention, and we take all that genuine authenticity and it becomes enshrouded in societal convention. We're leading an inauthentic life. At some point, we reach so there's an inauthentic life, and then there's anxiety, or my kids laugh when I say this. We say angst, but of course the philosopher said angst, is between the inauthentic life and the authentic life. And at some points in our life, we butt up against that anxiety. What do most of us do when we butt up against anxiety? It doesn't feel good, right? So we go back into the inauthentic life. We avoid it. We deny it. We distract ourselves from it. We numb ourselves. Sometimes we adopt addictions, anything we can to avoid it. Those folks stay in the inauthenticity. They never get past it. And that is why, again, the number one regret of those on their deathbed is I never lived a life true to myself, because they ultimately get to the end of their life, they're still inauthentic. The only way out is through. So those of us that wish to get beyond our inauthentic self, and the cry of our own soul to be seen becomes so loud we can't deny it any further, we must go through the angst to reach authenticity. And that is when we find the courage to say, I'm going to make that journey inward. That's the angst. The angst is the journey inward to accept the paradox of living, to accept the full spectrum of emotion within us, from the highs to the lows to everything in between. That is the anguish that we all must go through in order to get to living an authentic life. So the philosophers all talked about this so beautifully. And they, one of my favorites, someone mentioned, is Friedrich Nietzsche, who even had a term for it. And actually, Zapfa also had a term. He called it sublimation, which was like using all that angst to get through it and harness it to make beautiful things and transcend it. And Nietzsche used the Italian phrase amor fati, which was love your fate, which was basically fate is everything. Fate is, you can't know what it's going to be, and it's the dark to the light and everything in between. And he also came to the realization that we must accept and love everything in order to live life, because anything we resist and deny is just going to take us into that inauthenticity again. Sorry, it's deep stuff. I'm trying to make it simple.
So as we're coming up on the hour shortly, we have time for a few more questions, but a few people have asked about your family and your children. And I think that's one of the more amazing parts of this whole journey is how you've had your family get involved. And
you talk about it.
So we are very fortunate. We have an amazing family, 6 children, and two of our daughters work with us full time with LifeLines, which is truly amazing. They've been such huge contributors to everything that we're doing, and also I think it's been amazing to see. What's so funny?
Some of them aren't so happy about it.
Right. We have a couple of others who are like, Mom, please stop talking about this already. I'm in my class at school and they keep asking me about what you're doing. And our 13-year-old son, the good news is he has no idea what's going on. So we don't have to worry there at all. He's just kind of doing his thing. And if he saw this right now, he would be like, was that Mom on talking tonight? What was that about?
He wouldn't be that kind about it. He'd be like, oh,
yeah, there
not
she goes
another
again.
poem.
But 2 of our daughters, I think it's been amazing how they've contributed to LifeLines, but also amazing to see how you've been able to interact and engage with them in a completely different way than you ever have before. So I think that's something maybe you could share about that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, motherhood for someone who wasn't in touch with her emotions and how she felt has been definitely very challenging for me. But the truth is I wanted to be a mother more than anything. Like I always wanted children, and Doug and I both, we love children. So there was no question. So I was determined to do it despite the fact that I didn't have a lot of capability to do it. So I think this journey has really helped my children to see me, I guess, finally for who I am, and maybe forgive me for not being who they necessarily wanted me to be, and who I wanted me to be in parts of their childhood, if that makes sense. Because, I didn't have full capacity to feel. And I think when my kids were very despairing, my only way of dealing with them was to want to fix them right away. And I'm a fixer. And because that's the only way I made it to this point, was to basically like, what am I going to do to get through this and muscle through and push through the pain, literally. And I kind of wanted them to do the same thing. And I think, I only was able to offer others real compassion and sit there with people in their despair and not want to fix them once I finally took the journey and accepted myself for having that full spectrum of emotion too.
And I think maybe one of the things you could share also is at this point in your life, right? You've got a lot of things that many people would, look at and say that's the dream. You have everything that a person could ever want. And at this point in your life, you easily could have chosen to just sail off into the proverbial sunset, if you will. And instead you've really, I would have been your anchor, baby. Throw him overboard.
What are you doing?
And instead you've decided to undertake probably one of your greatest mountains ever. And why don't you share, why is that? Why did you choose to share all this now? Why did you choose to build this ecosystem? Why are you choosing to have workshops, 5, 10, 15 of them a week? Why are you choosing to do all of this now?
Oh gosh, because I was still seeking that meaning. I think even though making toys has been one of the greatest joys ever, I still felt that it was hiding the real me behind it, because those toys were forged out of a whole lot of despair every single day. And I wanted to connect with others who felt that same wealth of emotion and hadn't shown it their entire lives. So, I think one of the best letters I ever got was, or the best phrases I ever got in a letter was, someone said to me, I would have sat with you at the lunch table in high school. And I laughed because I said to Doug, I didn't even go into the lunchroom. I ate my lunch most times sitting on the stall of the bathroom. So I'm like, I don't know if that stall would have fit all the people who are now saying they would have sat at my lunch table. We'd be climbing on the seat of the toilet, crammed in that bathroom. That's a good cartoon. But that's what I wanted my whole life. I wanted to be accepted for who I truly was. And I know so many others feel the exact same way. So now, I'm finally, I'm popular, man. It's kind of a weird group, but it's an honest, authentic, genuine group. And it's just I am so elated to be part of a real community where we're not scared to show who we are.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point too. I think one of the things you've said to me a lot is that partially because you've had so many wonderful things, and people would say, "Oh my gosh, that's Melissa and Doug," and partially because of that, I think you felt even more importantly an obligation, if you will, to really help people by saying that it's okay. We can go out there and be honest and be authentic. And you've said to me at times, gosh, if I can do that, I hope that's invitation to others. And I was talking with one of our children the other day about this also. And I think that the more people can talk about things like this openly, and we talk sometimes and we say, gosh, if you were out playing in the backyard and you came in and you had twisted your ankle a little bit, it wouldn't be, you wouldn't hide that. You wouldn't say, oh my gosh, don't let anyone know that I twisted my ankle. But people feel like, if they have anxiety, if they're in a dark spot, or if they're feeling depression, people just feel like horror that someone might know that about them. And I think what you're saying is, no, it's okay. It's part of a wholeness. It's part of who we are. And there's many who are like this. I, Melissa, feel this way. And many of us do. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong at all with that. And I think starting with that position alone, I think gives feelings. I know when we did a workshop early on, there was a woman in the group. She raised her hand and she said, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one who felt the way that you just described. And I think you could almost see that relief come over her face, realizing that, as you say, you are not alone. And these feelings are natural, and they're not things that we have to run from. And when we ask questions like, well, how do we fix this? How do we solve that? I think your answer often is that we don't have to fix this. We can accept it. It's part of, I've heard you say many times, I'm going to have this for the rest of my life. This is a part of my being. And I'm just going to learn to accept it as a part of my entire self.
Yeah, that was very well said. You know, I don't even think it's necessarily like depression or not depression. It's really accepting who we are, however we are. And you know, it's folks who never accepted themselves for who they were. You know, even it's more for me than even depression. It's, you know, being this highly sensitive, introverted, odd, creative person. And the fact that because society really doesn't accept types like us, we feel sort of alone and isolated. And I think it's about whoever you are having the ability to proudly brandish it.
I see that we, unfortunately, because it would be amazing to have this conversation forever, and we will continue it. And we do invite you all to join us at lifelines.com.
Yes.
And Melissa, I've really enjoyed getting to know you this evening, and I'll see you back in the room in a few minutes. And in the meantime, we do want to thank again Barbara's for allowing us this time. We do want to ask that you support Barbara's if you would like. And I know that you can order Melissa's book, Lifelines, from Barbara's bookstore. And we certainly will hope that you will do that. But most of all, we just want to thank everyone for allowing Melissa to share her story and to share her journey. As she would say, it's a continuing story. It's a continuing journey. So, you know, hang around with us, pop in. Melissa's, you know, out there talking several times a week, and would love to hear from you anytime at Melissa Bernstein at lifelines.com. And
tomorrow we have an event for new folks who would like an orientation to what we're doing. It's, I don't know what time, 8 p.m. tomorrow night. Eastern. So join us. Everything is free. And we do a lot of weird things. Like right before this, we were a little, well, we just came in at the nick of time because we were dancing. We had like a self-expression session and we were dancing, and I was hysterical because the one of our team members who was leading it, he was like dancing. His dance moves are really hysterical.
So we have to check tomorrow to see if we still have any members of our community.
Yeah,
it's possible. They might have all left.
I kept looking to see like how many are leaving during this, but no one left. So,
but again, we do want to thank Barbara's for allowing us this time
to
speak with their community. And again, we want to thank you for doing community events like this, because this is one of the most important things: being connected, staying connected, being able to communicate with each other. Yeah. If you want to ask, you know, what's one of the most important things we can all be doing, this is it. So we thank you at Barbara's for
support your local independent bookstore.
Thank you all.
Bye.